Hi, today I'm going to do the presentation to state the financial position of the Microsoft Corporation, and I also choose the Intel Corporation as its competitor to do the comparison. And this is today's content. First, I will do the comparisons of some key business numbers, which include assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, and expenses. And at last, I will do the comparison of some financial terms. So let's start. First one is assets. Actually, this picture shows the last quarters, which are up to March 31st, 2020. Uh, it shows the Microsoft assets details, which includes like current assets, long-term assets, and total assets. Microsoft total assets for last quarter were $285.4 billion, and including about $117.5 billion current assets, and also approximately $114.9 billion non-current assets. And for Intel's, its total assets last quarter were 147.7, including 41.5 billion current assets and approximately $106.2 billion non-current assets. Actually, the current assets plus the non-current assets can be the total assets. For Intel, it also has $106.2 billion long-term assets and 10.4 billion intangible assets. Next one is liabilities. Uh, this one is an obligation to pay, and it can be short-term or long-term. For Microsoft, its total liabilities in 2019 were about $184.2 billion, including 69.4 current liabilities and approximately 114.8 non-current liabilities. For Microsoft, it also have $66.7 billion long-term debt, and all of them are non-convertible. For Intel, in 2019, it has $59.02 billion total liabilities, including $22.31 billion current liabilities and $36.71 billion non-current liabilities. And we have two figures. This shows the trend of uh, total liabilities and total current liabilities from 2015 to 2019. We can see that they have a slightly different. The third one is equity, which include market capital and shares on offer. Uh, Basically, the equity is assets minus liabilities, and this equity can be owned by the shareholders and or business owners. And for Microsoft, the total shareholders' equity of was equal to the common equity, which is about $102.3 billion in 2019. And besides this, the market cap for Microsoft Corporation currently is approximately $1.36 trillion. This data is come from the 5th of May in 2020, because I do this on that day. And total shareholders' equity for Intel was 77.5 billion in 2019, and the market cap currently is 253.69 billion. So this is summary picture, include common equity and total shareholders equity for Microsoft. Next one is revenue and expenses. This picture shows the summary of these two key business numbers, and actually it includes total revenue, or like gross profit, total operating expenses, and operating income or loss, and net income. This data all comes from last quarter. And for Microsoft, the total revenue is was $35.021 billion, and the total operating expenses in the same duration were 11.071 billion. And for Intel, the total revenue and total operating expenses are $19.828 billion and $4.816 billion respectively. We can see that both revenue and expenses to Microsoft is much larger than the Intel. So actually, we can see that the financial statement actually for Microsoft is much better than the Intel related to this. Next, I will focus on the financial terms, which contains liquidity, leverage, profitability, and market value. I will use some formulas to calculate some ratios to show this for financial terms, whether the corporation's situation is good. For liquidity, we use the current ratio, and the Microsoft Corporation current ratio for last quarter is 2.904. We use current assets divided by the current liabilities. And for the Intel Corporation, this result should be 1.737. And we can see that Microsoft is larger. So what this result mean? The current ratio actually can measure a company's liquidity, and it can show how easy is it for the business to turn assets into cash. And we can see that Microsoft is much better. Um, it seems to be much more flexibility, and it seems to be more flexible. The next one is leverage. I use the financial leverage for Microsoft Corporation. Its financial leverage in the last quarter is 2.493, and I use the formula total assets divided by common equity. And for Intel, we use the same formula. We get the results 1.935. Actually, Microsoft is also larger than the Intel. So the leverage actually derived from the use of debt for the business, and we can see that Microsoft has more debt in its capital structure, and it is more susceptible to defaulting on debt payment. For profitability, we can evaluate by is the business making money or is it using its resource effectively, and it includes two kinds of profitability. One is return on sales, which includes three margins. The first one is gross profit margin, with gross margin divided into new revenue. And the second one is operating profit margin, uh, which can be got from operating income divided by revenue. The third one is net profit margin, with net income divided by the revenue. And the second profitability is returns on investment. Uh, it contains return on equity and return on assets. They all use net income to divide it by another data. For ROE, we use net income divided by shareholders' equity, and for ROA, we use net income to divide it by total assets. And I have listed these five results. and also both Microsoft and Intel. You can see that all of these 5 results for Microsoft is larger than Intel. So we can see that Microsoft makes more money, and the profitability actually is using the resource effectively. All right, this is summary picture for profitability for the Microsoft, and it includes these 5 results. The last one is market value, which is also called market cap. For Microsoft, the current market value, we use the formula current market price per share multiplied by total number of outstanding shares. And I got this results on 5th of May. This is current market cap, which is $1.36 trillion. And for Intel Corporation, it's $253.69 billion. And actually, this is a large gap for these 2 corporations. So we can see that actually Microsoft's value is large. And at last, ultimately, this is the summary picture of this presentation. This data shows the comparison of the Microsoft and Intel's income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. And actually, from this data, we can get the results that, in conclusion, Microsoft is more healthy and its financial statement and financial situation is much healthier. So thank you for today. It is all for my today's presentation. This is the reference list